The I-Team is digging deeper now into how airlines and airports keep passengers safe in the event that a plane strikes a bird.
Yeah, just last month, in fact, a flight from New Haven had to make an emergency landing at Bradley because of a bird strike.
Chief investigative reporter Matthew Campbell looks into how often this happens in a story you'll only see here.
13 years ago, the Miracle on the Hudson magnified the consequences of bird strikes.
The engines would have been okay had they just struck one goose, but they encountered a flock of geese.
That's an extreme case, but Connecticut's airports see bird strikes too. Last month, an Avello flight heading to Florida had to land at Bradley after hitting a seagull.
The pilot made a decision that he wanted to check out the plane to make sure everything was okay. They went and landed at Bradley.
Sean Scanlon is the executive director at Tweed, and thankfully the Avello flight was eventually able to make it down south safely after the short delay. We wanted to know how often these events are happening in Connecticut, so we started digging. We learned that the FAA recorded 64 wildlife strikes at Tweed and Bradley since 2021.
You hear a loud thump, a loud noise.
Pilot and aviation expert Jim Rosman had 2 bird strikes in his career. One hit the plane's fuselage, the other collided with the plane's nose.
I didn't even realize I'd hit the bird on the nose until I landed and saw the feathers.
Rosman says most strikes happen close to takeoff or landing and happen most frequently between July and November when migratory traffic is high. The FAA tracks wildlife strikes on this database down to the date, species, and damage caused. Officials from both airports say the database reporting goes above and beyond to the point where everything recorded here may not have physically struck a plane.
We'll put any bird that we find out on the airfield. So some could get caught up in vortexes that might not be categorized as a bird strike with an aircraft, because no aircraft pilot has said, hey, I think I've hit something. So we'll still put that in the database that we found it within the airport environment.
They see an animal rather on the runway. They see an animal sort of off the runway. That's not an actual strike. It's just a report of an animal being there.
And it kind of gets categorized in the same way.
It gets categorized in the same way.
But these animals are still close to the airfields and can pose a threat. So what's being done to keep you safe by keeping them off property? We went to the airports to see. Michael Parento is the USDA airport wildlife biologist for Bradley. Each day, crews survey the land on and around the airport looking for threats.
Kind of fine-tune it to why are we seeing this wildlife here? You know, come up with a reason and then either alter the habitat on the airfield or remove it completely.
Using noisy flares is one way to do it, but the airport also keeps the grass low to discourage feeding and hiding. They also use sirens and propane cannons to scare wildlife away, but will also trap and relocate.
We try to reinforce this, daily, keep as much wildlife away from the airport as possible.
So those are the measures done daily, and thankfully it's prevented catastrophe. Bradley benefits from not being near any large bodies of water. Experts say we don't see the types of wildlife seen at airports like Logan, LaGuardia, Kennedy that are closer to the ocean. Tweed, however, is less than a mile from the Sound. Matthew Campbell, Channel 30 News.